Hello and welcome to the Blue Shadow Podcast. My name is Joey, and today I am here in a solo episode talking about issue number 1 of Star Wars Legacy of Vader, the Reign of Kylo Ren. This is a new comic series that focuses on some of the actions that Kylo Ren is taking between Episode 8, The Last Jedi, and Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. This first issue is written by Charles Soule, drawn by Luke Ross, and colored by Nolan Woodward. This comic line, before we dive into the bits of this story for the first issue, I just wanted to say that I think this story itself is really one that kind of needed told. I think just showing my bias, I absolutely love the sequels. The Rise of Skywalker is my favorite Star Wars movie. I know it's kind of a unpopular thing to hear necessarily, but I love those movies. But I think that they really could stand to gain for more fleshing out of the story. And I think we might be getting there with some of the stuff that's happening in The Mandalorian, but I think kind of how the Clone Wars served the prequel trilogy, I think we need some things to sort of fill in the story for the sequels. And this is a particular really interesting way to go about that. And also a little bit about myself. I've not necessarily been as avid of a comic reader of the more recent Star Wars comics, but this concept was so interesting to me that I was really excited to kind of dive in and jump in. So again, the premise here is that we're picking up very shortly after the Battle of the Crate. We see kind of Kylo Ren arriving on the Finalizer, the First Order starship, and the whole first part of this issue actually shows Kylo Ren kind of proclaiming himself as supreme leader to a large number of First Order officers, including General Hux, but a bunch of stormtroopers. And he kind of does this by like parading Snoke's body in different pieces and jetting him into space. And it kind of, I think, set the stage for them to want to follow him. And it, we kind of see him blaming the Resistance, kind of implying Rey, And I think it's just really interesting to show kind of how the First Order was hungry to go after the next leader. They weren't necessarily, they seemed a little confused, but they were down to go with him since Snoke wasn't there. And I think it kind of speaks to Kylo Ren's outward power. But then we move forward into the book, and he's kind of reminiscing. And they have these beautifully drawn pictures of some of the events of The Force Awakens and Last Jedi in this like kind of red hue, and we see Luke on Crate, Rey on the Falcon towards the end of The Last Jedi, him killing Han Solo, he sees Leia, all these different things, flashbacks with Luke, and it kind of just shows that he can put on this outward face but also not really have any clue what's going on and be very emotional and not as emotionally tough as he wants to project. And the concept of him kind of not knowing what's going on continues as we, see him interact with General Hux. He kind of at first starts to, take Hux a little more seriously than you were used to seeing, asking him about like what they have, what were Snoke's plans. And it ends ultimately with him kind of rudely demanding that Kylo Ren demands that Snoke makes him a throne, which is kind of funny. And we've not seen a throne for Kylo to sit on, at least in the movie, The Rise of Skywalker, so we'll see if Hux pulls through. The rest of the book kind of takes the line that Kylo says of killing the past. It takes that idea and he turns it up to like 15 from 10, where he already was. He kind of talks to Vader about how killing his past up to that point wasn't enough. He now needs to kill his association with Vader. So he kind of decides he's going to go to Mustafar, and he's going to, learn more about his legacy and stuff. And there's a pretty cool fight scene with some of the natives on Mustafar. And I always am impressed with these newer Star Wars comics in particular, the way that they're able to kind of make you feel the lightsaber action. It doesn't necessarily always work, but I think like here they did such an excellent job at showing like Kylo's rage and everything. And during this fight, though, he gets kind of a little cut on his hand, and his blood, which by, down familial relation is kind of the blood of Vader. So it actually opens a door. And we see a rather unexpected character return, and that is Vinay. Vinay being the character from Rogue One that was kind of helping Vader. He was a former Imperial officer, but it's just kind of his head in a vat, a sphere like a Bomar monk in Jabba's palace. A little weird, but he essentially tells Kylo Ren that he doesn't need to kill the past. He needs to be like Vader and let his anger fuel him. That's how Vader was so successful. And, it takes Kylo Ren a second to get onto that, but he eventually does, and he kind of then still wants to go continue learning about Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, and his legacy. And the last panel is Kylo Ren asking Vader to show him, and it says, next, Tatooine. Before we talk about the little preview that they give us of the next episode, I just kind of wanted to talk about my overall thoughts after my little summary there. Like I said, I think this story was begging to be told. Any perspective between The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, I think, is needed. There are a few existing stories. My favorite thus far is Resistance Reborn. It's a book that kind of follows the few members of the Resistance and kind of shows how they grow between those two movies. But I think this, showing the dark side perspective, gives us some kind of understanding. So we see, Kylo Ren, he kind of outwardly looks like he's leading well the First Order, but it's kind of easily taken over when Palpatine comes back. So I think it's nice to have this time to kind of see what Kylo Ren does with the First Order. And like I mentioned earlier, this is kind of a lot of setup, but I think the concept here of rooting Kylo Ren's inspiration with Vader in experiencing the things that he's experienced in his life is a really interesting concept. And I'm interested to see how that connects to the Rise of Skywalker, where we see Kylo Ren kind of less talkative to the Darth Vader helmet, which he even does in this issue. But, he still has it and everything, but he doesn't seem as much asking it for guidance. So maybe here we see him learn what he needs to from him, and then he's just kind of there for support now, the helmet. But overall, I really, really enjoyed this. It was a pretty quick read, but it got everything off to a great start, and I'm really, really looking forward to the rest of the issues. Issue number 2, it is like the little caption in the back says, "A return to Tatooine. Kylo Ren seeks out the home planet of his grandfather, Anakin Skywalker. The young tyrant must go up against Gardula the Hutt, and her guards and a Rancor. What secrets to the past blow in the harsh sands of Mos Espa?" And a really intriguing concept. I'm excited to kind of see the Tatooine, a little more than we did in the Rise of Skywalker, and see some other planets that we know, but in the time of the sequel trilogy. So I think this is just overall a really, really exciting story, and I am really looking forward to it. So if you've read this, please let us know what you think. Did you enjoy it? Do you think this is an exciting story to tell? Do you have any questions? Please feel free to let us know. But with that, we thank you so much for listening. Please stay tuned because we'll continue to release episodes on Legacy of Vader, the Reign of Kylo Ren. Please consider giving us a subscription, review, comment on YouTube or the podcast platform of your choice. That's at Blue Shadow Podcast. Consider following us on Twitter, X at Blue Shadow Pod, or on Instagram at Blue Shadow Podcast. And with that, we thank you so much for your time. We hope you enjoyed, and we will see you next time.